The book of 2 Chronicles reads like a sacred reflection on Israel's spiritual history. Though the author is unnamed, ancient tradition points to Ezra, a man devoted to worship and covenant faithfulness. Written between 450 and 425 BC, the book revisits the same time period as Samuel and Kings, but with a different lens. Instead of focusing on politics or military power, 2 Chronicles highlights the priestly, spiritual heartbeat of the nation. The story begins with Solomon, who gave orders to build a temple for the name of the Lord, 2 Chronicles 2 verse 1. His reign shines with glory, wisdom, prosperity, and a magnificent temple where God's presence dwelled among his people. But as the book moves through the kings of Judah, we see a dramatic rise and fall tied directly to the nation's devotion to God. There are moments of bright renewal, especially under kings like Hezekiah, who opened and repaired the temple in the very first month of his reign, 2 Chronicles 29 verses 1-3. These leaders remind us that spiritual revival is always possible when people turn their hearts back to the Lord. Yet the narrative also shows the slow decay of a nation drifting from God. By the final chapters, the priests, leaders, and people became more and more unfaithful, defiling the temple God had consecrated, 2 Chronicles 36 verse 14. Judgment followed. Jerusalem fell. The people were exiled. But the book doesn't end in darkness. Instead, it closes with hope. The proclamation of Cyrus, king of Persia, granting permission for God's people to return and rebuild the temple, 2 Chronicles 36 verse 23. Even in discipline, God's faithfulness remains steady. Throughout the book, the kings and the temple point forward to something greater. Jesus Christ, the perfect King who will one day reign in righteousness, and the living temple, God's people, who carry His Spirit forever. Earthly kings failed. Earthly temples crumbled. But God's ultimate plan was always pointing toward Christ and His eternal kingdom. 2 Chronicles also holds up a mirror to every generation. Blessing follows obedience. Destruction follows rebellion. And whenever God's people humble themselves, He is eager to forgive, heal, and restore. If the book teaches us anything, it's that returning to God is always the path to life. And in the midst of all these lessons stands Solomon's request. When offered anything, he asked not for riches or power, but for wisdom to fulfill God's calling. That same wisdom, wisdom from above, is what we need today to walk faithfully, discern God's will, and reflect the character of Christ in our world.